value. All of the money that we receive in our lives, we receive in exchange for value from someone else. Now, you have to understand what makes something valuable, right? See, well, here's what some people think. Well, in order for it to be valuable, it needs to be worth the money. That is absolutely incorrect. If something is worth the money, it's not valuable. If something's worth the money, I might as well just keep the money. Like if I said to you, you give me $1, I give you $1, we both still just have $1. It only makes sense for me to give you money if the thing that I'm getting in exchange for the money is worth more to me than the money. And it only makes sense for you to give me the thing that's worth more than the money if I'm giving you the money because you value the money more than you value the thing. Like, value for value exchange means I'm giving you something that your perspective causes you to value more than the thing that I'm giving you. But my perspective causes me to value the thing you're giving me. Okay, so the 4 levels of value. There are 4 levels of value that we can trade for money in the marketplace. The lowest level of value is implementation. And implementation is a way of creating money where you are using your muscles over time in exchange for money. This is the lowest level of value. And I believe it's the lowest level of value because it's the least spiritual. That's why I believe that wealth is a spiritual outcome. Think about it. What is wealth? Wealth means that you have done the greatest work. Now, it may not be the most righteous work, but it's the greatest work. What does that mean? Jesus said, "He who will be greatest among you, let him be servant of all." So the thing that makes you great is your ability to serve value to other people. And in exchange for that, they give you money. That's how it works, how life works. Your employer pays you because what you give to them is worth more than the money they have to pay you. Are y'all tracking? So you use your muscles over time. So that's the implementation level. The next level is the unification level. The unification level, and on that level, you use your management skills to make money. On this level, you might make, I don't know, somewhere between minimum wage and $80,000 a year. You make minimum wage if you're making tacos at Taco Bell. You might make $80,000 a year if you work in a body shop or in a repair shop for a high-end car dealership. Okay, unification, your management skills. On this level, you might make somewhere between, on the low end, you might make $60,000. If you're managing that Taco Bell, on the high end, you might be making $250,000 a year if you're a middle manager at Lockheed Martin. So you're using your management skills. Managing people is a higher spiritual activity than doing the thing yourself. Okay, the next level of value, this is the line across which wealth begins to be created. What is that? This is the communication level. And on the communication level, you use your mouth to make money. Language is something that only spiritual beings have. Only spiritual beings have language. God has language, he's spiritual. Angels have language. Demons have language. People have language. So communication is a spiritual attribute. Well, on this level, you might make, on the low end, $100,000 a year. If you sell cars or insurance or real estate. On the high end, you might make $100 million a year. If you're an A-list actor or you're a best-selling novelist or you write screenplays for blockbuster movies or you write hit songs, you might make $100 million a year. Right? But you're communicating a message that moves the masses in some way, which also creates cash flow for you in some way. Does that make sense? And on the highest level of value is imagination. So, and on this level, you use your mind to make money. And on this level also, you might make anywhere from, like, on the low end, $1 million a year. And on the high end, it might be literally billions. So, the people who make the most money have the best ideas about how to serve the largest number of people. Did I say that too fast? The people who make the most money have the best ideas about how to serve the largest number of people. And so The reason you're stuck financially is because you're attempting to figure out how to get unstuck financially. That's not how you solve the problem. The way you solve the problem of being stuck financially is find a group of people that has a big problem and figure out a very elegant solution and let those people know you have it. Ta-da! And now you're in the right place at the right time. So this is the frame through which I want you to view these three things that I'm going to talk to you about with regard to how to take your life to the next level. So, you're closer than you think. What is the first one? The first one is you have to change how your mind thinks. So you change how your mind thinks. What does that mean? Well, it means that you either see, woo, what just happened to my marker? Which means you either see obstacles. It's not. That's okay. The board doesn't want you to get unstuck, but that's okay because I do. Obstacles, or do you see opportunities? Now, you think you see obstacles or opportunities because that's what's there. So I see obstacles because obstacles are there. Or you may think, I see opportunities because opportunities are there. No, they're both always there. But your mind, see, we think that we see with our eyes. But our eyes are just one of the things our mind uses to see. We actually see with our mind. And see, you're going to see the one you're the most tuned into. Are you tracking? And so what you have to do is you have to learn how to be tuned into a different frequency. So, like, people, it's so fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me that negative people don't see themselves as negative. But guess what? Here's the amazing thing. They're the only ones who don't. Everyone else can see. This person is clearly glum from Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver will never make it. Okay, some of you are too young to know what I'm even talking about. But some people can find what's wrong with everything that's right. And other people find what's right with everything that's wrong. Here's my question. Which one are you? Because you don't see things the way they are. You see things the way you are. You have to change the way your mind thinks. And I've already told y'all a story many times. I'm not going to go into it again about Hagar, and she's out in the desert from Genesis chapter 21, and she's out in the desert, and Abraham gives her a bottle of water and a loaf of bread and sends her and her probably 12, 13-year-old son out into the desert. And she runs out of water, and she puts her son under a bush for some shade, and then she goes over and starts crying about the fact that he's about to die. She didn't want to watch it. And then the angel comes and says, "What are you crying about, Hagar?" What kind of question is that? That does not sound like an angelic question. What you crying about? Hey, single mom in the middle of the desert with a child with no water, what you crying about? That does not sound angelic. Can I get a witness? But it was very angelic. Because the question shows us that the problem was not the bottle that was empty or the child that was thirsty. The problem was that the mother was so focused on what was missing in the bottle, because it says, and God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water that was there, which means the well of water was already there. So here's my question for you. What if your well of water that you're thirsting for and have been thirsting for years is already there, but because you're so focused on obstacles, you can't see the opportunity? I like to say it like this. She couldn't see the well of water in front of her eyes because of the water that was welling up in her eyes. And are you so focused on what's missing in your life right now that you can't see what's there? You have to change how your mind thinks. You're either focusing on signal. You're one step away. Like, now, this person. Oh, that was pretty cool. This person right here. Either that person can take a step and fall, or that person can take a step and they'll be right there. This is the dream life they've been looking for their whole life. But guess what? They're unwilling. But what if that won't hold me? Well, it might not hold you. But what if this drop off is only like whatever that is right there, 2 inches? But it feels like more than that. It's all perspective. It's not all perspective, but it's largely perspective. How many of you ever noticed this? Most of the things that you've worried about most of your life never came to pass. So let's say you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, that you didn't have to worry about the thing that you were worried about. What could you have used all that wasted energy for? Are y'all tracking? And so you have to change how your mind thinks. So your mind either thinks in the form of because of who you are and how you are. You're filtering for either static or noise. Like your mind is tuned in to either static or it's tuned into signal. Which one are you tuned into? Signal or static? See, I want my mind to be tuned into signal, not static. What is signal? Okay, here's the best way for me to say it. You are always focused on something. Yeah. Everybody's focused on something. I have noticed that people who win at a very high level, the primary difference is we focus on intention and ignore distraction like it's a disease. But people who live on the struggle bus, they hyper-focus on distraction and ignore intention. Now, I'm not just going to say that. I'm going to define distraction. I'm going to define intention. Intention is anything that I focus on that moves the needle in my life in my favor. I'm going to label distraction as anything that I focus on in my life that doesn't move the needle in my life in my favor. It's like I was taught as a child, well, you want to make sure that you read the newspaper and watch the news because that way you can know what's going on in the world. How many of y'all were taught that? Anybody else taught that by your parents or anybody? No, nobody? Okay. I was taught that. You read the news. You read the newspaper and you watch the news. And then I realized that the news in the newspaper, the news on the news wasn't really news. It was just bad news. And so it gave me a lot of stuff to worry about, but nothing to work on. Can I get a witness? And so what happens is, so I was in, we didn't call them masterminds. I had this coach back in the day. He's like, some of y'all are so negative. I thought he was talking to other people. I thought he was talking about other people. Yeah, they are negative. Get them, Jerry. Right? And he says, yeah, some of y'all, because he used to always say, what's up, big money, Myron? I would say, no, I'm not the big money. You're the big money. He was talking about what he saw in me. I was talking about who I saw I was. I'm not the big money. I don't have money. I don't have big money. You have big money. And I was caught by example how to deflect compliments. So he says, some of y'all are so negative. Some of y'all are negative because all you do is you spend all this time watching the news. And all they're doing is programming you to focus on things you can't change. And waste a lot of energy worried about things you can't fix. Well, if I'm focused on things like, now, I don't watch the news. What do you mean I don't watch it? Don't watch it. Don't read it. Don't focus on it. But Myron, how will you know what's going on in the world? That's easy. You're surrounded by people who are just negative. They all always know, and they are looking for somebody to tell. It's not like you're going to find out that the world is coming to an end and your phone will start ringing. All the people who are paying attention to that. There are people who just listen to the news all day long on CNN, on constantly negative news, slides of Fox News, ABC, always been corrupt news. I don't care which one it is, they're all the same. I don't care which flavor or brand it is, they're all negative. They're filling your mind with problems you can't solve. But how will I know what's going on in the world? I have a better question than that. If you can't fix what's going on in your world, what are you going to do about the problems in the world? You can't even fix your own problems. So how's you knowing about all the terrible things that are going on around the world serving you to serve anybody? I don't know. Just doesn't seem like it's doing that to me. Okay. So Jerry says, some of y'all are negative because you watch the news. He says, some of y'all are negative, you can't even receive a compliment. I might say to you, hey, big money. And you say, no, I'm not the big money, you're the big money. I was like, oh, snap, that's me. I thought he was talking to them, now he's talking to me. And so guess what I stopped doing that day? I stopped deflecting positive comments into my life. And I started receiving them instead of deflecting them and rejecting them. Like, people can't even compliment you on your outfit. They say, oh, that is an amazing outfit. Oh, this old thing, I've had it for years. Instead of doing that, try this. It's a two-step formula. Y'all ready? Somebody gives you a compliment. Here's what you do. Smile and say, thank you. If you can't receive a compliment, how are you going to receive compensation? So, what you focus on? Are you focused on intention or are you focused on distraction? Are you focused on signal or static? What are you focused on? A signal. What's signal? Signal is something that gives you direction so that you know which way to go. You know what to do next. What is static? Static is anything that you pay attention to that like causes you to end up having nothing to do and therefore doing nothing. Who do you follow? That's a really good question. Who are you following? So there are different kinds of people you can follow, right? Well, first of all, don't follow anybody who's going somewhere you don't want to end up. Or they already are somewhere you don't want to end up. Like, stop following those people. But also, I think there are three categories that, in general, that people follow. People who are really, really good at talking and not that good at walking. What does that mean? That means they overpromise and underdeliver. Beware of people who overpromise and underdeliver and every message is hype. This is the best one I've ever seen. This is the best one I've ever seen in my entire life. It's making people money every single solitary day. Like, I am very apprehensive about people from when I listen to messages from people who use phrases like every single solitary and this is the best one I've seen ever. Like, bro, do you understand you said that about the last 17 things you talked to me about? People who say, to be honest. Okay? So when you're not saying that, what are you being? It's a question. It's not a judgment. Or people who say, well, honestly, I was already assuming that until you said that. Now you've got me questioning. The things you say that are not prefaced with honestly, what are those? Dishonestly? I'm just telling you where my brain goes. Okay. So people who overpromise and underdeliver, by the way, there are a lot of those. Like, you have to do your due diligence on people before you start doing business with them, and especially before you attach your brand to their brand, right? And so, do you follow people who overpromise and underdeliver, or do you promise people who underpromise and overdeliver? Some of y'all like those people. They underpromise and overdeliver. You like them some, but you don't like them enough to buy from them. So my recommendation is don't follow those people, because if you do follow them, you will become one. And here's the problem with people who underpromise and overdeliver. They very seldom get the opportunity to deliver because they underpromised. Are y'all tracking? Yeah. Instead, I would recommend that you follow and then become this kind of person. The kind of person who promises big but delivers even bigger. You know, my Make More Offers Challenge starts today at 10 o'clock. If you do not have a ticket for it by 11 o'clock, at 11:01, the opportunity to buy a ticket goes away. Right? So, and if you want, for those of you who are watching, you want to join my Make More Offers Challenge as a VIP, it's $297. It's every day this week, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for people. And I'm not trying to sell tickets right now. The challenge has, I don't know how many people, but 100 and something. So, but I'm telling you this because when that challenge goes, like at 11 o'clock, you won't be able to buy a ticket for this month. You'll have to wait till next month. Okay, now, here's why I told you that story. Because on my challenge, for people who buy a VIP ticket for $297, I tell them, when you buy this ticket for $297, I'm going to give you a 10 times better than money back guarantee. Which means what? Which means by the end of the challenge, if you don't believe you got 10 times the value of the money that you paid me, I'm going to remind you on Friday to get a refund, and we're still going to be friends. That's called promising big. So now people are paying me $297, and I've got to provide $2,970 worth of value. Do you understand how now all of the risk is on me to deliver on my promise? But it wasn't an under promise, it was an over promise. Like, whoever said, if what I'm giving you is not worth 10 times what you don't feel like you got 10 times more than you paid for it, I'll give you, like, who's ever said that before? I've never heard anybody say that before, right? And somebody wants a refund on Friday, I'm gonna trust that they're gonna forget that I gave, the challenge is gonna be so good, they're gonna forget that I gave them that refund offer. So you know what I'm gonna do right before? The thing, the invention. Okay. So, you have to change how your mind thinks. But that's not enough. You have to change how your mouth talks. Here's what the scripture says. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. A man shall eat good by the fruit of his mouth. Thou shalt also declare a thing, and it shall be established where? Unto thee. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So what am I saying? I'm saying you don't, like people say, oh, you speak this into existence. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't. I don't care. I don't care which guru says it. I don't care which pastor says it. Anybody who says that, they're all wrong. Because the only person who speaks things into existence is God. Before the challenge ends, right before the VIP experience ends on Friday morning at 11 o'clock, I'm going to remind them that if you don't believe this was worth 10 times what you paid for it, send us an email today and I'm going to send you your money back. No questions asked. Like, who does that? Well, people who promise big and deliver even bigger, right? I'm not worried about somebody wanting a refund. Why? Because I already know what I'm going to teach them. And I know I'm going to blow their minds, and they're going to learn things that they've never learned anywhere else in $5,000 and $10,000 courses they've bought. So, okay. So you change how your mind thinks. But the second thing is, by the way, that's, how many of y'all can see that that goes back to the imagination part of the 4 levels of value, right? So change how your mind thinks. Do you realize, I want everybody, I'm going to prompt you. And then I want you to give me the first name that comes to your mind, but do it out loud so the people in studio. And if you're online, just type it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to name something, and I'm going to name a business. And when I do name the business, name the first person who comes to your mind. You ready? Apple Corporation. Steve Jobs. Everybody says Steve Jobs. Isn't that fascinating? Steve Jobs died in 2011. That was almost 15 years ago. Nobody says Tim Cook. Steve Jobs did not invent the Apple computer. Steve Wozniak did. Steve Wozniak is still living. Nobody says Steve Wozniak. Everybody says Steve Jobs. My question is, why? Here's why. Because Steve Wozniak was the implementer that created the Apple, but he attached himself to an Imagineer named Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs could see the impact of what Steve Wozniak created. Steve Jobs was the embodiment of Apple. I'm not saying he was I'm not saying he was a good person, but he definitely was a great person. He created stuff that serves us in, like, I got my iPad and my iPhones and my MacBook Pros and my Apple Watch and so did many of you. Why? Because he created stuff that he knew we needed before we even knew we needed it. Why? Because he spent so much time in his imagination. He made Apple valuable. Steve Jobs, he's the first person who took over multiple industries and just changed the way those industries work. He took over the computer industry, changed how it worked. He introduced the graphic user interface. We call point and click, drag and drop. Steve Jobs introduced that to the world. He didn't invent it. You know who invented it? Anybody know who invented it? No, not Steve Wozniak. Xerox Corporation invented the mouse and the graphic user interface. Xerox created it, but they didn't know what they created. Steve Jobs was such an Imagineer, he could see what you had even when you couldn't see what you had. Just like Bill Gates saw what that software developer who created the down and dirty disk operating system that later became Microsoft DOS, he saw what that person created. Okay. He could see the value. The other person could only see